Second half of the NBA season is underway. The All-Star weekend is finally over. And starting off this video with me getting embarrassed by Anthony Edwards. I tried to play lockdown defense on him, I just end up being posterized. This just serves as a lesson that for as much as we YouTubers want to show the audience how great we are, there are moments where we are not so great. It always makes us human. Yeah, that's the human experience in a nutshell. This All-Star weekend has been a roller coaster. Some good things happened during this weekend, but it's been outweighed by the bad moments. But it's no longer the players' fault as to why it's been like that. It's more so on the presentation. Considering that for as much as people can complain about the players' lack of intensity, the lack of effort in playing in the All-Star game, it's not like it hasn't happened in the past. Because usually the All-Star game intensifies when it becomes fourth quarter and the game is close. The only time it would look like it's not going to be an intense ending is when one of the teams are already blowing the other team out, basically rendering the game as over already. The first three quarters are basically used for having the teammates from the East or West Conference get used to each other, show their fancy moves that they wouldn't do in a regular game basis. So basically just to try and put on the show for the fans. But this All-Star weekend never really put on a show for the fans. As this All-Star weekend implemented a new format, it was a lot shorter than it should have been. And it spent more time on advertisements and all the extra shenanigans than the game of basketball was played itself. And it makes you feel bad for some of the first-time All-Stars like Cade Cunningham, Tyler Hero, Jalen Williams, because you never really got to see them in action enough. And having the score limit at 40 is just too low of a score, especially when the All-Stars are some of the best in the league. And when the format is like similar to the Rising Stars games, it's not really ideal, as the first and second year players are not really used to the league just yet, while the All-Stars, well, most of the All-Stars that have been chosen have been playing in the league for a very long time now. They're already veterans, basically meaning they're very well adjusted to this league. Speaking of intensity, Mike Conley alley-oops it to Rudy Gobert, two former Jazz members, giving the Timberwolves a lead. This game went down to the wire. The last time we played against the Timberwolves, we couldn't win against them in the NBA Cup game. We were out for revenge. And I hit Anthony Edwards with the step back behind the back for the three, getting my revenge somehow because I got posterized by him 2 times in this game. I didn't want to get embarrassed again. I wanted to get my get back. Tried to alley-oop it to Walker Kessler. Edwards tries to reach, leaving Colin Sexton for 3. If I were to rank the players that I have a hard time guarding in my career in general, Anthony Edwards has to be number 2. I played great defense on Anthony Edwards that possession, but that's thanks to the GOAT skills that I have equipped, which gave me 99 perimeter defense. Without it, I would have had a much harder time trying to guard him, because I've been struggling to guard him in both of our matchups so far. He does that cheese animation, which is an easy steal for me, and it results in me shooting that wide open corner 3. We're having a lot of momentum right now. We're about to get our get back after that NBA Cup loss earlier this season. I do that Jordan Poole go-to shot, putting us up by 10, effectively ending the game. Next up is against the Magic. The Magic should have had two all-stars at least in Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner. It's just unfortunate that they had to miss so much time due to the torn oblique that they suffered. And it kind of messed up the rhythm Magic were getting to start the season. They were number 3 in the East. And oh, and look at that. I just got Jalen Suggs leaning with that half spin move. I wanted to test out the half spin moves because I haven't used that move at all. I do the full spin moves most of the time. That's actually the first time I pulled off the half spin move, and it was so effective. I gotta figure out a way to up my consistency in some of the moves that I don't normally do. Like, that would give me an even deeper bag in terms of creating for myself, and it can also help create for my teammates better, even though I've been getting a lot of assists. Like that alley-oop to Walker Kessler. I remember in one of my earlier videos of this MyCareer series when I said that Walker Kessler would be too unathletic to be able to be an effective alley-oop target for me. I am so happy to say I was wrong, because our chemistry has been much more improved these days, and I just used my dribble penetration to lure the help, leaving Markkanen wide open in the corner. And this is like a typical Magic game, because at the start of the third quarter we only have 46 points and they have 43 points. That's literally how they play in the real NBA. The Magic are super defensive oriented. They're literally the lowest scoring team in the NBA right now. Their defense has been a key reason as to why they're still in the playoff race, as they've been getting out of rhythm. Paulo and Franz coming back hasn't really been effective as much as they should have been. I remember saying that exact same thing in my last several videos, that the Magic have had their offensive problems, which has been masked by their great defense, which actually makes it surprising to me that they really stayed put at the trade deadline. No moves to try and get someone else that is effective on offense. Because you have Paulo, Franz, Jalen Suggs to an extent, and Cole Anthony off the bench. But do you really trust everyone else to be like high-level offensive players by the time the playoffs start? Because while most of them are very high-level defenders, you're still going to need offense at the end of the day. That's the same kind of problems that the much younger playoff teams have had in the past. An example is the Thunder from last year, when it was no one else outside of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that could really be an effective shot creator for themselves. They're going to need Chet or Jalen Williams to be more of a factor in that area this season if they want to reach the top. And speaking of shot creation, that Jordan Clarkson sidestep hop jumper is lethal. Every time I see him pull off that animation, it almost always goes in. So every time he does that one, I have so much confidence that it's a guaranteed score. Being guarded by Franz Wagner, doing a series of sides up moves. I do that dribble pull up yet again. That Jordan Poole go-to shot, it's become my favorite one. That said though, that's been a very offensive oriented quarter for us in that third quarter. Because when you look at the score a while ago, we only had 46 points, and at the end of the third quarter we scored 87. So we scored 41 points in a quarter against one of the top defensive teams in the league, which is amazing. And speaking of defense, Walker Kessler gets another block. Defense wins championships, as Nico Harrison said, but it's not in a way that you would want him to say that. It's so, which is hilarious. Jordan Clarkson just does a series of isolation moves. If it's not Colin Sexton that's creating his own shot, it's Jordan Clarkson off the bench. I'm so glad we have multiple shot creators that we can have, because when the bench lineups play, you're going to have to know where you're going to get your offense from once your best players are sitting on the bench. But when your sixth man can go off at any time, that's literally a luxury. And that's exactly what Jordan Clarkson does against a great defender in KCP. And that's the end of the game against the Magic. We failed to actually trade for Kenyon Martin Jr. So we're not going to have our roster exactly like in real life. Just pulled off another move that I haven't done before, which is the hop step layup. Most of the layups I do are either the regular layups or reverse layups. And I just tipped a pass from Tyrese Halliburton with my hands-up defense of alley-oop it to John Collins. And he just pulls up for three, resulting into a miss. Tyrese Halliburton hasn't had a great season. And that's coming off a season where the Pacers made it to the conference finals. They won against the third seeded Bucks, the second seeded Knicks, and then they just didn't have enough against the Celtics. Not helped by the fact that Hallie just got injured after game 2, missing the last 2 games, which both resulted in losses. I was expecting the Pacers to play a lot better than they should have. They did keep it close, but unfortunately they just kept on breaking down at the final seconds of most of these games. Even in game 1 they should have stolen that. They had like a 2-possession lead in like 30 seconds to go, and it was just hard for me to tell if circumstances just went against them or they just simply laid an egg. Because in that game 7 in the semifinals, everything went into their favor. They had a generational shooting game. No matter what the Knicks were doing, the Pacers just made everything. They shot around 56% from the field for an entire game. And it's game 7 of all games. Because normally, game 7 is where the stakes are the highest. 2 teams having an opportunity to advance to the next round, just one more win. And with that, they're going to have a lot more missed shots. The defensive intensity is at an all-time high, and fatigue will play a factor the most in that specific game. And speaking of luck, just watch Colin Sexton at the end of the shot clock. He was having nowhere else to go, and he made that cheese somehow. That's one example of shooting luck just going into your favor. Also need to mention the pet peeve I have regarding John Collins and his shooting form. He was wide open in the corner. He could have stayed put for the 3, but his feet going more forward just ruins the momentum. So he always has to sell in for the long 2 instead for the extra point. And going back to game 7s, just imagine how tired the players are prior to playing in a do or die game. Like the first 6 games are already tiring enough. Everybody's playing physical defense. Like the physicality in the playoffs are much more enabled compared to the regular season, where a lot of whistles are blown. Once it's postseason, however, the refs are going to swallow the whistles a lot more, which will have mixed reactions for the fans. A lot of the fans are going to say, oh, they should have been called for a foul. It's like obvious. But there are other fans that would say, oh, you've gotten enough with the refs already for the past 82 games. Why can't you just, allow the defenders to play more physically, blah, blah, blah. And the discourse is going to span for essentially a whole series, just to see how much more whistles are going to be blown in favor of whatever team is playing. And arguments with the fan bases are going to be so rampant. That doesn't mean there are games that won't result in close games. Like the game we're playing right now against the Pacers, we're up by 22 after that Lauri Markkanen 3. And to put the icing on the cake, this is going to be an alley-oop to John Collins, a fancy one-handed catch off a nice alley-oop pass by me. We won that game in convincing fashion. We don't always get wins like this, but with how much of a grind the season is, it has to feel good for us. So, with 30 seconds and look, another fail. I'm at 11, 10 seconds to go. I'm still at 2 stars. Oh, another fail. I'm at 12. Come on, 5 seconds. I am so lucky enough to get the 3rd star at the end of that workout. So, that was so much different.